When I first entered the cannabis industry, I didn't have a relationship with the plant. What I did have was a background in retail leadership, a deep belief in people, and a desire to make work feel human again. I didn't know that this path, this quote, journey into the green, would change how I see leadership, wellness, and even myself. Over time, the plant became my teacher. I learned about healing, patience, transformation, and the quiet power that grows from within. I began to see how the industry, like many of us in it, is still finding its balance between structure and soul, profit and purpose, hustle and humanity. And what I just read were not my words. I wish they were, but they are those of today's guest, creative storyteller, advocate of Black women's literature, wellness, and cultural memory, empathy driven strategist, cannabis advocate, and community builder with over 20 years in retail management. Welcome to the pod, Keisha Parker.
Yay! That was such a good introduction. My God.
You wrote it. You wrote it, and I felt it. Like I just it's so beautiful. And you folks listening, if you want to check it out, that's from Keisha's newsletter, Once Upon a High, which you can find on her LinkedIn. I'm so pumped to talk to you today. Thanks for doing this.
No problem. I'm excited. Anytime I get to talk about, the intersection of, traditional retail and cannabis retail, I'm for it. Because, there are a lot of similarities foundation wise, right? But the chaotic piece comes from selling a regulated product that is highly stigmatized. People either love it or they're just like, absolutely not. And we find that a lot of the people who are helming many of the bigger businesses, I wouldn't say that they have a relationship with the plant. I think they see the dollars that can be, the potential dollars that can be made. But it all goes back to like, can you sell the thing that you don't really know? And, we've been in retail for a long time. And I train so many employees on, you don't have to know every aspect about the product, but you got to know something. You have to be able to connect with who's coming through your doors, because people want authenticity, even more so now than before. And that is what I loved about when we were just medical, because I'm like, oh, I get to know everything. Like we're sitting and discovering together. And then when we went recreational or adult use, where if you have an ID and you're over the age of 21, you can come in and buy. That aspect kind of went phew. Like the educational component kind of disappeared a little bit. It suffered a lot. And so as a result of that, and the mass influx of people that were coming in, because overnight we went from meager sales to tripling sales overnight. When we were used to dealing with, medium traffic, like we got lines out the door. So it became a how do we get people in and out efficiently, instead of how do we get people in and out efficiently, but also educating them and giving them that same one-on-one experience that we were doing when we were medical.
Yeah. Wow. Matt, I'm so curious. Just a level set, I'm curious to know what your exposure already was to retail cannabis. And then I would love to hear, based on what we just heard from Keisha, what overlap occurs to you in your experience? Because I think I heard some.
Well, I think one of the interesting things is that I've worked across clothing, cookware, perfume, body product. Like I've worked across the retail sector, and each one is very different. I think that me and Keisha align personally on that. I love to work with a product that is more personal. Right now, I'm in perfume, and that might not actually sound very personal on the surface, but the things that people share with me are wild. I mean, I'm not even going to repeat some of them on this podcast because think about how personal smell is and what it can remind you of, right? And actually, I will tell you one of the things someone said, because it's not super inappropriate, and it was an older woman, so I feel like it wasn't. She was like in her 50s, so she's older than me. It's not an old woman. Let me just clarify that. But before we go anywhere, but she would our perfumes where I work are very like musk heavy, and she was like, "Do you know how I describe your perfumes to people?" She's like, "Don't be offended." And I was like, "I won't." She's like, "It's like dirty, beautiful sex," and I was like, "I love that."
Come on
But
now.
so, um, I mean, this is also the same woman who brought her probably like 80-year-old mother who told me she was a perfume whore, and she whispered it to me like it was like the biggest secret.
Damn.
So, but so like I too have that like people get personal, and I prefer that because I
Mhm.
can better help you. And I also just enjoy my job more when we're discussing something more human. It's part of the reason why I left Old Navy. I think Old Navy had the
Yeah.
greatest people culture that I've ever worked with. I don't even know if anyone can replicate it. Um, but I had to go because I just can't get excited about a $5 flag tee. Like, it's not personal.
Come on now.
We can't have a personal conversation about it. Like, people, that's just not the nature. So that's that part. Those are the similarities that I recognize. I will say, as a consumer, hearing you talk is really interesting because I live in Massachusetts, so we're always ahead of the curve in a lot of things. But so what's interesting is I've been to quite a few places. I am not a regular cannabis user.
Mhm.
I'm more of the person who every time I go to a store, I have to have someone help me. Like, I'm so lost. I'm like, I'm just here for an effect of, say, calm or sleep or whatever the case may be for me. And I don't know enough. So you actually do, like, the bud tender really has to treat me like I've never been outside before, when it comes to this stuff. Whereas I have friends that are like, they vape, they do the gummies, they have the cream, like they're doing all of the things. And so when they go
Mhm.
into a store, they can just look at a menu and they're like, I want the sativa this, I want the indica that, I want this, I want that. I know what I'm getting. I will say one of the other things that I just wanted to comment on real quick is hearing your perspective, having been a consumer, is really interesting because I've been to a couple of places that I don't like
Mhm.
because one of them I'm going to describe, it's literally like going to the RMV. Like you get a number, you get in line, and it is like they're like next. And like if you
Yep.
don't come fast, they're like next. Um and then you go up there and they're like, what do you want? And if you have questions, they're like kind of annoyed because they're trying to do
Mhm.
volume, clearly. Like
Yeah.
they're like, because I remember going and I was like, I'm looking for something for sleep, but it's actually for my husband, but I'm just thinking about this and maybe
Mhm.
something with melatonin in it too. And they were like, so something with melatonin in it. That, yes, like almost like get to the point because I don't have time
Yeah.
for your shenanigans. Versus there's another place that I go to with a friend, and it's now my go-to place because they're so like, who are you? What are you about?
Mhm.
What are you here for? Like, are you here to just like sit on a couch and get high? Like, are you here
Mhm.
because you want to go to sleep? Like, are you here because you want to have a good time? Like, what is the purpose? And then once you tell us the purpose, we're gonna show you the things that match. And so it's interesting to hear you talk about sort of the switch overnight because I can now see in my own experience two places that have experienced that but have gone different
Okay.
paths. And I'm
Different
never going to that
routes.
RMV place ever again because I don't even like going to the RMV. Why am
I'm
I going
really
to go to it?
upset that you even had that. Every time I hear that anybody has an experience like you had, Matt, it just burns me up. When I came in, I literally, the one time I had experience with cannabis was in college, and it was not good. Also, I put my age out there. I'm 43. I'm a dare kid, right? So I grew up learning like cannabis is the gateway drug. So when I thought cannabis, I'm like, oh my God, next week I'm gonna be shooting heroin. Like, what the heck? And I had to really like when this opportunity came around, I was like, you want me to do what and where? I gotta learn about what not just the product, but what's the culture around the product, right? Because the thing with cannabis is everybody is pretty much selling the same product. We all dispensaries in a state get their product from the cultivators that are within the state. Because of course we're not federally legal, we're not gonna get into all that jargon. But I can't get weed from Massachusetts down here. Like, so I have to rely on who's growing in the state. So you'll have, we'll say 10 dispensaries that have all the same eighth. So I'm going to put out Snoop Dogg SDGOG right now. That is a popular strain in Maryland, right? 10 dispensaries will have it. So if I have a bad experience at one, I got 9 others that I can go to. And I don't even have to tell you why I'm not coming back. So I think dispensaries now have to get into creating the experience. Another store that I think of is Lush. Like, I know when I go into Lush, this is why I don't go in all the time. I'm not leaving with less than 2 items. Because, and it's not just because I love the products. I know that when I walk in there, the associate is going to walk me through every piece of the store, right? They team sell like nobody's business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think right now we're at a pivot point in dispensaries where we have to bring that retail knowledge into it. Because a lot of people who have dispensaries do not have retail experience. They have not worked a holiday, like a holiday season. They haven't done all these things. So when these things happen, there's that kind of freeze, like, what do I do? So I think that the industry could really benefit from having way more retail grounded, not just dispensary management, but people in middle management and even in your C-suite who understand the mechanics of what it is to be in retail on the front line. We got to bring that knowledge to this space because cannabis needs that.
That's so interesting. Matt worked at Lush too, by the way.
You did. Matt, we're going to start going store for store. Like, where did you work?
Matt's worked everywhere, I think.
A little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. Mm-hmm.
By the way, I've never heard the term team sell before. That's really interesting. That's super cool.
That's Fossil. When I was at Fossil for years. I love Fossil.
Interesting.
Very beautiful watch collection.
Yeah.
From all the years I was there.
You
have a Fossil. Ooh,
and that's Matt's
too.
showing us his watch.
I've only ever owned Fossil watches from the time I was 16 to I'm 38 now. So
yeah,
that's that brand loyalty right there. But I also wanted to throw out there too. What's interesting about your saying this is I found similarities also going from high volume to lower volume places, right? Like people at Lush, people at Old Navy, they know how to not only team sell, but like they just know how to move differently. Like your body, it's almost like muscle memory. Like, and a good team, a great team even, you don't even really communicate with words. It's just eyes. Like, you know what I mean? Like you look over there and someone else moves over there because they recognize it and you're just in this flow. And I have found that when you go to places where people are like a little slower and then you are picking up like business. So Williams-Sonoma, for example, very sales-based, but they do 40% of their business in the last 8 weeks of the year, which is crazy, which means what works in the first half or the first, percentage of the year doesn't work in the last. And it's that same thing where like you can be a great seller and just talk about pans all day, but then come down to those last 8 weeks and now you're like the worst employee I've ever seen because you just don't know how to manage that situation. So that's interesting that you're saying that. I'm also, and I don't know that you want me to make this comparison, but I'm going to make it and see how you feel. But it kind of is giving, imagine if alcohol just became legal and like what the industry would look like. Because it's like, I think of, you have these huge liquor stores where you just kind of go in and like someone behind the counter who looks like you don't want to interact with ever is there. And you just, you get your vodka and you go. But you also have these stores that are more like we sell everything. And like, do you want a really nice sippable vermouth? Do you want a great red wine? And you're interacting at a more personal human level about tastes. And I keep thinking about that as you're talking, because it feels like an apt analogy. Like, what would happen if alcohol had just become legal and we were living
Mhm.
through that?
It's so funny that you say that. That's a perfect comparison, actually. And a lot of the folks who are in cannabis came from alcohol.
Mm.
So I think one of the things that again, it goes back to learning how to pace that experience from door to door, once they come in and once they leave. How do we pace that? How are we using the floor space to tell a story? How are we using the time that they're waiting in line? Are we utilizing that? Do we have somebody with a tablet going to be like, hey, I know that you're waiting. Like, is there something that I can help you with while you wait?
I think what you said is so interesting about how a lot of dispensaries don't have folks with retail experience, right? And it sounds like even down to the bud tenders. So these are folks that are hired because of their expertise on the product and their connection to the product, but they have no customer service retail experience.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of reminds me, what movie is it? Is it Armageddon, where they send like the oil drillers to the
Yes,
moon
it is.
because it
It
was
is.
easier to teach the oil drillers how to go to space than it would have been to teach like astronauts how to drill or something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we see how that ended up. Like, because again, they prepared them in the best case scenario, right?
Right.
This is what it should look like. This is what the atmosphere should be. This is that, and then they get up there and they're like, wait, hold on, stuff is flying at my face. Oh my god, the drill bit broke. Like, what are we supposed to do? Now we're spinning in space. Like, everything that could go wrong went wrong in Armageddon. They figured it out because of the adaptability and the flexibility, and of course they're trying to save their lives and the lives of everybody on Earth. And I don't want to make go into a dispensary sound like Armageddon.
Yeah,
but the same principles apply. Like, we train for best case scenario. This person is going to come in. They're going to ask you these questions. These are the answers that you're going to give, and then you're going to give them a product, and then they're going to walk out.
Yeah.
And that is not how that happens, because a lot of times, especially when we were medical, our patients were in pain. And so I had to teach them, like, look for the things. If they're coming in and they might be like limping or something like that, be like, hey, do you need a chair? You need a moment? Like, how can I make this transaction a little bit easier for you? So a challenge for me as a trainer is to be like, okay, I have all this knowledge. How do I condense it into a training that will trigger someone's capacity for empathy and give them the freedom to make their customer service style their own, and not just something that's generic or
absolutely, scripted,
that feels inauthentic.
Well, now you're getting into what I think is the real question of retail in general at this moment, which is, how do you train people, and maybe even a generation, how to strengthen their soft skills? I've been saying my entire career, give me someone with great soft skills. I will train them on the knowledge, because I've worked a lot of highly specialized places. And what I mean by that is I used to work in like independent coffee. So it's very similar actually in some ways to perfume. And so that's the same thing though, because I would have these people who'd be like, okay, well, you gotta hire this kid, Tim. You gotta hire him because he is the best barista you've ever seen. And he'll tell you what elevation coffees in, Ethiopia and Kenya are grown, and versus how low of in Brazil they grow much lower, and he knows all of that and whatever. And it's like, you meet Tim, and Tim couldn't talk to a human if his life depended on it. And so for me, what you're describing is very much that, which is, I mean, it's not surprising that that's kind of where the cannabis industry went. But what's interesting to me is how much soft skills are overlooked And like, no offense to people with vast amounts of cannabis knowledge, but this is going to sound offensive and whatever, DM me later and you can all get mad. But I could hire the nicest person off the street and I can give them the cannabis knowledge. Like, that is something I can teach them. But it's like, I can't take someone who has all the knowledge in the world with cannabis and teach them how to see the woman who needs to sit in a chair. Because some people just aren't paying attention to other humans with that lens. And even when you try to like get them to, like, the person struggling with the door because they got a stroller and they're holding bags, and it's like, go open the door. Why are you staring at her struggling with the door?
Come on now, right? That part.
And actually,
That part right there.
real quick side note, I actually had a regional manager when I worked at Pete's Coffee. Oh God, I loved her. She scared the crap out of me, but I loved her. Eva. So Eva one day told me, she's like, so I only interview store managers in cafes on the floor with them facing the door and me with a side profile. And she's like, guaranteed during the interview, someone's coming in with a stroller. And I want to see, are they going to interrupt the interview to open that door or not? Because that is the real test. More important than any question I'm going to ask them.
Listen, I like Eva and I don't even know her.
Yep.
Because that is what people miss so much. And I'm so glad that you brought this point up, because I'm actually trying to create like that retail empathy training, right? What does it look like in real time? And I started out with an idea, and I've luckily had the opportunity to try to like pilot some stuff somewhere, and I'm like, oh, that's not gonna work. I mean, we work this. And it is so difficult to train people's eye to that. I didn't think it was going to be as difficult as it is. Like, I'm like, wow, like, And then I pay attention to the people who just have it. Like, some people just have and then you're just like, okay, so that's the person that I need. I need to highlight and then really pour into, because they could be an example of what it looks like to just move intuitively for people. Like, you need help? Okay, I got you. Because when I needed a break from cannabis, I was like, I want to just work in a coffee shop. And I ended up, doing retail work at one of my favorite coffee shops in Hamden. And because I was like, what am I missing? I was burning out. Like, I had gone through multiple like acquisitions. So luckily I had the same team, which was amazing, but we worked for 3 different companies in that same space in a 3 to 4 year time period. So we started off as one company, and then we got sold and acquired by another. And then we operated as that company, and then sold and acquired by, another. And you're just like, okay. And then everyone's customer service, trainings are different, what they expect. So I was lucky with the first kind of 2 that we had, because they were more customer centric. So we had that freedom to be empathetic. It was actually encouraged, right? And then by the time we got to the third one, it was like, okay, now we're recreationals, numbers. We're just paying attention to the volume. They're not even paying attention to the shift with customer burnout and employee burnout. And I was like, I need a break. I need to get back to the roots of my why. And the roots of my why, and why I ended up choosing retail, is because I love to interact with people, and I love to help people get the thing that they need. Whether it's coffee, whether it's watches, whether it's bags, whether it's bras. I used to work at Soma. I started gleaning from all these places that actually encouraged us to tap into our empathy as a superpower and not a weakness. Because bigger companies would be like, we don't have time for all the empathy stuff. Like, that is weak. That means that you're going to let dollars walk out the store. When in actuality, the more empathetic your staff is, and how they connect to the people coming in, that actually helps your retention. It actually helps your sales. It actually helps boost your KPIs, because people want to buy from somebody that they can trust and they can connect to.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's a perfect segue into a couple questions I definitely want to ask you. about the relationship between corporate and frontline. Definitely the theme of of the pod, and you just touched on how that changed as you got acquired. But my first question is, knowing, because I think, the first time you and I chatted, you inherited this team of product experts, but retail newbies, right?
Mhm.
And so whose call was that? Was like, here's who we need to hire, who's who we need to have in our stores?
Oh my gosh. It was not my call. Well, I kind of came in and they were like, yeah, we hired everybody already. Good
Yeah.
luck. May the odds be ever in your favor. No type of thing. And so I've been fortunate with the teams and the employees that I've had that they are open to suggestion and learning.
Okay.
Because not every team is like that. And I tell, middle management and C-suite, y'all don't realize what you have in your team. Like, it's the raw materials are there. The empathy is there. The skill set is there. We just need to polish and refine it. So then the conversation with them is, I got to convince them to make the investment. Because sometimes the training is going to cost money, not just money, but man hours. Like, how do we fit this type of training into our 7-day business where we don't close? And they also feel like they have this gigantic pool of applicants.
Yeah.
So it's like, if someone doesn't work out, we can just hire another person. It's fine. When it's not fine, it's
Right.
not. Because the skill sets and things that you're looking for, not everybody has. Like, again, it goes back, you can have all the cannabis knowledge in the world, but if you can't connect and relate to people, you can't sell my product.
Right.
And that's going to affect the business negatively. So the conversation shifts where I'm like, okay, so this is why you need to invest in developing the talent you have on the floor. I have to have the data, the observations, and everything. If I'm going to anybody to be like, okay, so we need this training, you need to take a week off, or you need to take a couple days off, and this is why. This is how it's going to pay off. This is like, these are the projected bumps that you'll see in these categories because of this training. Like, I have to come in well informed because I know that I'm going to have an uphill battle trying to get them to be like, And the reason that we can't just fire and hire new people is because of why. So being able to acknowledge those and handle them in real time makes all the difference, as opposed to just letting things get to a point where, you're getting bad review after bad review after bad review. And you're just like, we don't know what to do. So we're just going to wipe the entire team and start over. Like, these things cost money. I don't know if people ever really do a breakdown of what turnover looks like in their stores, and how much it actually costs them to bring people in. Cannabis has a little bit of a different caveat. Like, I know that sometimes we do background checks, but with cannabis, you got to pay for the badging, you got to pay for the background check, and then you have to wait. These things don't happen like by the end of the day. Sometimes you are waiting up to 2 to 3 weeks to make sure that, somebody is badged to work in your store. So it's like, when you have to let people go, you already have to have a plan, or have you already started hiring? So once that person leaves, you have somebody that you can put in that place. Like, those are very distinct challenges that cannabis has that, traditional retail doesn't. And so you have to allot for these things. You have to think not just 10 steps ahead, you got to think 20 steps ahead, which, in a general manager, like, brain, like, you're like, oh my God, like, that can be a lot. And that's why it matters who you have on your team. That's why it matters what kind of communication are you having with your middle management and your C-suite, because smaller dispensaries who are independently owned, like I said, everybody's there. Your CEO, your VP of operations, everybody is there in the building. They might not be there every day, but their presence is felt. When you get to like bigger, what we call MSOs or multi-state operators, that gap is like this. So your general managers don't often have those conversations or those candid conversations with the VP or CEO. Like you're talking to the middle, the regional managers, and you're hoping that what you're sending up the chain is getting to where it needs to get so you can see the change. I've been fortunate to work at MSOs where there's more of a clear line for my communication to hit a VP's ear. That was one company out of 3 that I've worked for. So, and so not every company is created equally. And I will say that the company that I worked for where I did have that, like there were more folks who actually interacted with cannabis on a personal level. So they understood a lot of the challenges that we were voicing. When people don't have that, and I'm not saying you have to be a regular consumer of the plant to get that, but have some kind of interaction with it. Even if it's not you, that cannabis helped somebody in your family when they were dealing with cancer or something like that. Like have some kind of stake or a relationship with that plant, with cannabis, so that you can steer your company in that direction of we actually care.
Damn, yeah. Okay. Well, as we're getting close, I can't believe we've already been talking for almost an hour. But I'm gonna ask both of you to maybe participate in a bit of a speed round. Usually we talk about the disconnect between corporate and stores in terms of operations. It's like they don't understand the realities of the floor, and expectations are unreasonable or just weird. But in this instance, it sounds like there's also a misalignment between the actual product. So I'm curious, Matt, like, have you ever experienced in all your retail sectors a situation where I feel like the executives just don't use or get what we're selling?
Yeah, real quick, I would say a couple of places. Old Navy, are there executives making $5 million a year who are wearing Old Navy? I doubt it. And so same thing at Williams Sonoma to some extent. Like, it's like, are these people as avid of cooks as the people who work in the store? Also, probably not. So I've definitely dealt with it on like a small scale. But again, you don't need to use cookware to understand cookware.
Right.
Whereas cannabis, I don't think you can like look at use and understand use. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Keisha, if there was like the top 1 or 2 things that like executive decisions that you're just like, what? Like, do you even know what we're selling here? What did those look like?
Wow, that's a great question. I think for me, it comes down to how they want us to sell it. Like, I think they don't think about the educational component that needs to be a part of it. And they haven't really figured out a good way to translate, like, okay, I understand that, this plant is complex in this way. We need to figure out an effective way to inform consumers and the media, actually. Everybody because I go on LinkedIn and I see all of these different articles about, cannabis does this, or why are we selling it and stuff like that. And companies play a huge role in that type of education. So I think that, even if they don't have it, they need to have people around them that can be like, okay, you might not know, but this is what I know. So let's come up with a plan in that way that we can disseminate down to, the dispensary level, so we can start seeing, a return on that, a return on people, a return on, even thinking about the type of products that we're bringing into the store. Do we need to be more intentional? Do we need to scale down all the SKUs? Like, do we need to, offer something, a smaller amount of this product versus this one? what does that look like in real time?
Yes.
And for them to do that, they need to be more present in the stores.
Yeah.
So again,
Common thread there.
independent, there you go. Like it always goes back to like the when they visit your regionals and your VPs and your CEOs,
Yeah.
when they visit, what time they visit. I know that y'all touched on that before. It's like, after 3:00, you're not gonna see nobody. And after 3:00, that's when it really starts popping because everybody's coming after work. You get to see, a real snapshot of what a day looks like.
Right.
I think, because they feel so inaccessible, when they do announce that I'm showing up, instead of the team acting as they would, it becomes a performance. So we're going to perform everything that the SOPs say, and we're going to make it look real good. And they're going to think that everything is fine in the store. I remember at Fossil, I think it was Fossil, we had a GM who came in a lot. And at first I used to dread it. I don't want another DM visit because we knew like we had to make sure that everything was tip top. Like we've cleaned and done this, and we're practicing, the 3Bs, be aware, but break away, bounce back, like consistently, all these things. So it became performative, and I think she knew that. So she would pop in and kind of like hang back, and then she would even try to like sell. Sometimes she would try to interact with customers.
It's always cute when they do that.
That's where I saw the disconnect. That's where I realized, I said, oh, wow. Like sometimes folks, even if they started as, associates, once they get there, they kind of forget how to effectively sell. So when you're watching it, you're just like, no, this is not how that's supposed to go. Oh God. Like, and you're like, please don't try to sell anybody else on that. But then that opened up, don't try to do that again. But then it opens up an honest dialogue. Because then she's like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, if we're telling you that this works consistently and then I try to do it and it's not effective, where am I missing? Like, what's missing here? And a lot of times it's the empathetic component. And she wouldn't have known that if she had not come in and, experienced that. And that's vital information that she can take up to her higher ups. Like, hey, listen, I know that we got this going on, but in real time, I tried it. It doesn't work how we thought it worked. So where do we need to tweak? And I think we need to communicate more with the store. So her presence then became not so much like, oh my God, I can't believe she's coming, to it became more of like a collaborative effort.
That's nice,
if you will, because they will write policy or training or new procedures, again, from best case scenario, and they don't know what it looks like in real time. And the only way they know that is if they come down, not from the weekly meeting that you have with your store managers.
Well, and I feel like we've just come full circle, right? It's like, that sounds like every single retail experience I've heard, cannabis or not.
Just come in. Like, we are not lepers. Like, this is the lifeblood of your business. Like, the people who are in the stores are the face. Like, I know that you might be the face when on LinkedIn and in the media when the stories drop, but when someone comes in, like, they're talking to your staff. So when you have a bad experience, they're not talking about the CEO of the company. They're talking about what's happening on the frontline level.
Yeah, out in the wild. As we start to wrap up then, Matt, just based on everything you've heard, I know you've been cannabis curious. Any final questions or takeaways?
I'm sorry.
I think my takeaway is that it's a takeaway, some hope, maybe a warning to cannabis executives all wrapped into one, which is, it sounds like cannabis is on the precipice of deciding what it's going to be and how it's going to be. And nothing has been decided yet, which I think is really exciting. I think that's the exciting part, right? Like, it's it's not every denim retailer that promo shouts to you at the front, "Hi, welcome in. Just so you know, it's 2 for 1, blah, 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 and $25 for a top if it hasn't become that yet. Because nothing's like stuck long enough, right? Like it hasn't been around long enough. And so I think the exciting part is like it's still able to be shaped and formed, and it's still moldable, and people like Keisha can hopefully influence how that goes. But I think the warning becomes, do you just want to end up like traditional retail where people like Becky and Matt and Kit and Ron and Steve Worthy and all these other people spend hours and hours and hours and days and days debating and talking about what's wrong with retail? How do we fix it? But so many things are so ingrained, so it's hard to break habits. And, regional leaders have always been like this, and store managers are always used to this. So now we're in this place where you're like trying to dig out from the rut and fix something that's very ingrained. Cannabis is not there yet. Nothing is ingrained. Everything is still doable. Everything is still available to change. So I think that's really exciting. And then I also think, again, that's like a warning to cannabis executives. Like, do you want to be in a place after you've made all your money? Maybe you won't care. I don't know. In 5-10 years, where, you're walking in and every cannabis place is the RMV, and we're asking, how did we get here? And then Keisha starts her own podcast with someone else about how did we land here? I don't understand. Like,
what happened?
In cannabis right now, it sounds like all of that is preventable. How do they prevent it? I mean, we don't have time for that. That's like another 72
That's
hour
a whole
podcast.
nother segment. But
that's my
podcast.
But that's my takeaway. It's very exciting, but also should be a warning.
And
I
that's
agree.
really like what I put at the title of this. And it's from your newsletter, Keisha, finding the balance between structure and soul. And it sounds like in a lot of ways, cannabis still has more soul than a lot of other traditional retail segments, but it's always at risk because I'm sure all the other retailers did at some point. Nobody starts a business because it's easy.
Yeah, they don't. And so that's why I say, look to your independent, like, the bigger companies. Look to the independents that are actually that are making the waves. Like, because there are so many that are doing the work, and I know that they're balancing out compliance and regulations in this state versus this state and all these things. But look at your stores that are getting it right, because there are stores under these big companies that still are able to. Their management is like, we hear what they're saying, and this is how we're going to, transform it and make it personable for those who are coming in. So that's why I said you can't always sit in the corner office or sit, remotely. You need to go and talk to these managers and make yourself approachable. Like, that's there's no explanation of that. Make yourself approachable. Bring your humanity with you when you visit your stores. Don't just come with a list of your KPIs and you guys missed the monthly sales goal by this much. What happened? And come more willing to hear not just what your staff is saying, but hear in between the words, because sometimes they might not feel comfortable to say what's going on. Numbers give you one set of data, but actually going to the store and talking to people gives you another set, and you have to find the balance in between that to be able to, highlight what's working and work on the opportunities to make your store and your company better.
Yeah. And if I could even just push that a tiny bit further, beyond make yourself approachable, assume right now that you are not. Like, even if you feel like you're a nice person, if you are the boss and you're announcing visits or you're whatever it is, ask yourself, like, am I approachable? If I'm not, like, what can I do in this visit that would make it clear that I want to be and open it up? Because I think so many people would think, like, yeah, like, I always ask, do you need anything from me? And they assume that that's being approachable. But I don't think that that's always a safe answer for floor teams to answer, honestly. Amazing. Thank you so much for your time, your candor, your writing, which everybody, again, should go check out on LinkedIn. Once Upon a High is the name of the newsletter. If people want to get in touch with you, because I know you do consulting as well, specifically for retail cannabis stores, is LinkedIn the best place?
LinkedIn is the best place. Shoot me a little inbox. My email is pretty simple. It's KeishaParker6@gmail. But like I said, LinkedIn, I actually check my email, the DMs, and I respond.
Yeah.
So that's probably the best place to reach me.
Perfect. And again, it's Lakeisha Parker on LinkedIn.
Yep. Lakeisha
Thank
Parker.
you. Thanks so much, guys, as always.
Thank you.
You're listening to Dear Corporate, Love Stores.